So as we're just thinking, well, as I'm listening to you, I'm not hearing pork and chicken and beef and turkey. I'm not hearing these things a lot. Can you kind of go in depth a little bit more about just the veganism in an early African tradition here in America?
Yeah. So when you go back to what the enslaved were actually eating during the antebellum period, a lot of it is close to what we call vegan today. So it's pretty much seasonal vegetables with maybe some pork. If you hear about pork, it's usually just pieces of pork to season the vegetables.
Mm.
When we hear about the meats you described, it's usually when the work schedule has slowed and people are either eating or eating in a celebration context. So pretty much what we were eating is vegan, very similar to that. And so now the hottest trend in soul food is vegan.
Mm.
And you're seeing a lot of interesting expressions of that. Now, there are certain motivations for it. Some of it is for health reasons,
Mm.
but a lot of it is a raising of consciousness. And people are starting to rediscover what the African diet was, the West
Mm.
African diet, which was primarily vegetables as well. And so it's a way to reconnect with the way our ancestors were eating. Different context,
Hmm.
but a way to reconnect.
Because I see a lot of people who are making the transition to the lifestyle, and a lot of people are African American, and like even myself, I'm starting that journey of like reducing my meat intake, just
Yeah.
personal reasons. But it seems like we aren't associating being vegan with our indigenous customs, and I think that's a really good. I think it can be a really good selling point for us that if we want to reclaim our identity, the first place to start is going to be the diet and the food.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we kind of skip over um, how important food practices are to our culture as African Americans.
Right, because that education was disrupted, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, earlier, certainly people passed on the food knowledge, but we just got away from that
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of reasons, I think. So now it's relearning what our ancestors did. And I think another exciting development right now is you have these African born chefs who are starting to get some play.
Mm-hmm.
And they are creating diasporic dinners.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to have several courses that maybe start with an African dish and then show you how it's a precursor for all these other things that we eat. So it's part education, part deliciousness. So I think that's an exciting trend.
I think that is because I think we because of like systemic racism and the institution of slavery, we've kind of gotten away from our identity, so we think.
Yeah.
But I think that if we look at the food can be a springboard to us really reclaiming our identity. Because I just like through a lot of research, you see that civilizations are started around their food source.
Yep.
And I think if we're talking about just improving our situation here and really appreciating people who like you who can provide that analysis for us, it seems like everything we're talking about land loss. That's a big discussion. It seems like everything has its way of coming back to food.
Yeah. And it's another way to reclaim our health. So
Mhm.
think about it. It's like, a lot of people say soul food needs a warning label, right? That if you eat it, it's going to kill you. But think about what nutritionists are telling us to eat: more dark leafy greens, more sweet potato. Okra is a superfood. Hibiscus is very good for you. More fish.
Mhm.
All of these things are the building blocks of soul food. So what I tell
Wow.
people is just a matter of preparation. Understand that soul food is a celebration food. Some aspects of soul food were not meant to be eaten frequently. They were meant to be eaten every once in a while. But the greens, the black eyed peas, sweet potatoes, all that stuff, if you just make it in a different way, it's tremendously healthy for you.
I think that's really interesting because it seems like we are we, we we've gotten like a negative connotation around what soul food actually is. Because if you ask somebody, they're gonna be thinking to like deep fried chicken and
Hmm.
you using old grease to cook food and like we look at it from that aspect. I think that's probably where our underappreciation is kind of lingers around that just about it being unhealthy or you're gonna eat it and then you're gonna go to sleep. But it seems like historically, if we perform an analysis on it, is really healthy food. It really is something that rejuvenates your soul.
You're right. Yeah. And you just got to make sure that the fried stuff and the glorious
Mm-hmm.
stuff, you just moderate that. You only eat it every once in a while. And I think the other big knock against soul food is that it's slave food,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
reduces, it just really eliminates a lot of the complexity in soul food. Because soul food is really a coming together of West Africa, Western Europe, and the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more going on there. So just to say it's slave food, I think, is unfair.
And I think just a like an intersection or the intersectionality in the conversation is that if a lot of us want to support Black farmers, all the items that we listed are things that Black farmers could grow and get to Black people without having to break the bank. And they could do it and make a very good living. So I think this conversation is like rejuvenation, or it's rejuvenating in a sense that it ties in food and then it ties in land loss and farming. And I think that's where our sustainability has lied since we've been here in America.
Yeah, so we could help the Black farmers. We could also help restaurateurs. I have to tell you one story. I went to a vegan place in Oakland called Souley Vegan. I had southern fried tofu, vegan mac and cheese, and vegan collard greens. So the tofu was shaped like fried chicken.
Uh-huh.
It tasted like catfish to me, but it's still good. The vegan mac and cheese, no cream, so they used almond milk.
Wow.
I wasn't feeling it so much because
Yeah.
I'm used to creamy mac and cheese. It was more like stuffed tortellini, if you've
Okay.
ever had that.
No, I haven't, but it sounds like it's good.
Yeah. But the collard greens off the chain, and the reason was they were seasoned. And if you season vegetables well, you don't even miss the meat.
You don't.
Yeah. And a lot of people now, because we're used to that smoky profile with our vegetables, so now they're using things like smoked paprika or other smoked spices to hit that flavor note.
Thank you for your insight today. I think everyone watching is gonna learn a lot. We just appreciate you being here with us today.
Much love,
And
man.
I think that we've made some headway with this whole food and this intersectionality with the food movement.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right.